AFTO Human Rights Awards. Mr. Bassi, a pleasure that you're able to join us today. We can see you on the right side of our split screen.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, let's begin this conversation with the Honorable Minister. So, Honorable Minister, we had you last year after COP21 that took place in Paris. And then, of course, COP22 has taken place now. In terms of having a proper understanding of what's going on, what has changed since COP21 that impacted on COP22, and what are the takeaways from COP22?
Thank you, Kingsley. What COP21 did last year was to bring to fore the issues of climate change that people were looking at it as a sort of fiction. COP21 in Paris brought the whole world together. Big nations, big leaders came around to articulate and to make people understand that the issue of climate change is real. It's no longer a scientific fiction. And so commitments were made, and the landmark Paris Agreement was brought to bear. Now COP22 is designed to build on the successes of COP21 and to show how serious and committed the world is about climate change. COP21 had up to 2 years to get it signed by 55% of the countries by 55 countries who commit 55% of the emissions. But by November 4th, the threshold was met. The Paris Agreement came into force because it was ratified by 55 countries. And Nigeria is among the countries that signed the agreement and ratified it. Because before leaving for COP22, the Federal Executive Council approved the ratification of that treaty. So, as I'm talking now, just after COP22, there are about 111 countries that have signed up to the Paris Agreement. This is a landmark achievement because no treaty has gotten such a rapid response from the world like this climate change treaty. So even though we have up to 2 years, but within a year, this agreement was ratified. So what we have as a takeaway, first and foremost, let me commend the role of the President, who was there in person and reiterated the need for interventions, because most of the emissions that are coming into the world and that are leading to global warming came from most of the developed nations. African countries like Nigeria are at the receiving end. We emit less, but we bear the consequences of those who emit. So for the President to be there and to reiterate, you heard on the short clip, he talked about Lake Chad. It is a very, very serious problem for us. We need Lake Chad to be recharged, and wherever he has gone in the global forum, he reiterated that, and we've gotten a commitment, particularly from the German government, to address the issue of Lake Chad. That is one of the most significant takeaways that we have from COP22.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. Just before we come back to the other two guests with us here at the Abuja studios, again, let's place this in proper context so that some of our viewers can relate to this. And that's why my question is going to Ambassador Ayo Olukoni. Ambassador, you recall last year we also had you on this program ahead of COP21, I think, in the immediate aftermath of COP21. COP22 has come and gone. But of course, some of the takeaways the Honorable Minister has touched on. Are we talking above the heads of most Nigerians when we are referring to COP22 and some of these issues? Are these global issues, as some persons have said, that the country is clawing at, whereas what are the issues about the environment are staring us on the face? What's your comment?
Thank you, Kingsley. I also want to first also congratulate the minister and of course the country and Mr. President's attendance as well as his message in Marrakesh. I don't think we are talking about the head of people any longer. The floods are there, the deserts are there, Lake Chad is drying up. So at the end of the day, people now know what exactly it's all about. that indeed climate change is real. And for skeptics, I think it has been proved beyond reasonable doubt. The most important issue now is how do we get, especially the states themselves, to be able to buy into this particular process? I think as we go on in this discussion, I'm sure practical steps and initiatives will come in as far as that is concerned. The beauty of it is that a few initiatives came up, because don't forget, COP22 was a combination of a number of meetings. It was also the 13th of the Kyoto Protocol, and also the CMP1, that is the PMP1 of the Paris Agreement. And then a key issue was also discussed, the question of climate financing. I think that's a very important aspect of it. But to directly answer your question, I don't think we are talking about the heads of people any longer. What is left for us to do now to see how they can also claim it, ownership of the climate change discussion at the most rudimentary levels.
All right, thank you very much. But then let's get over to Bergen, Norway, where we have Mr. Nimo Bassi. Mr. Nimo Bassi, you've listened to the Honorable Minister and, of course, our guest in Lagos, Ambassador Ayo Lukani. And, of course, the Lake Chad is there, the deserts are there, the floods are there. But then the average Nigerian is still wondering, what are we really talking about?
Probably should do the most, especially cutting emissions, stopping the pollution from their factories and from all that they do in the rich countries to fill the atmosphere with greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide. Rather than doing that, the debate has been moving towards having countries make voluntary pledges. And to some of us, moving on the path of voluntary pledges is setting the world on a very dangerous trend towards catastrophic global warming. This is what should worry Nigerians, that we need to call on African leaders. Unfortunately, we are the most impacted. So we need to call on our leaders, and I'm happy that we have a very focused leadership at the Ministry of Environment and Minister of State, the Minister of Environment. They're all pushing very strongly for this to be done. We need to have a collective push to bring the debate, to bring the negotiation back to the track of justice on the part of equity, where those who created the problem do the most and not just play around. Because even the climate finance of $100 billion per year from 2020 is being very contested right now. The rich countries only want to put on the table things that are the double counting, things that they give as grants, as loans. They want to count that rather than bringing additional and new finance. These are the challenges.
All right, Mr. Nimo Bassi, thank you very much. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's get back to our Abuja studios now. Dr. Victor Fodeke, we earlier introduced him. Among his assignments in the past, he was head of the Special Climate Change Unit at the Federal Ministry of Environment. The Honorable Minister says, and the report is also out there in the public domain, that Nigeria has ratified the Paris Agreement. Now, the question is, after the submission of the ratification instruments, what next?
Yeah, thanks very much. From the historical perspective, a lot has actually gone into play in ensuring that where we are today is a reason for all Nigerians to be very proud of the fact that a few months ago I was asked to speak on Saturday night event here, then I said that water can never rise above its level. With the leadership in the country right now and our head of state making all of us to be proud at Marrakesh, he did it in Paris, he did it now, and then when you look at the composition of the ministry itself, the ministers there are very well seasoned people. And the department itself, as it is right now, the ministry has a permanent secretary that is a professional in terms of forestry, desertification, desert encroachment. Now, what is now left is what the ministry has already triggered. That is strategic plan for implementation. There is a need to have the various state governors and the local governments buy into these plans, into this initiative of Mr. President, of making sure that climate change is an event that everybody knows, because this year is the hottest year. And during the last time I was asked to talk about the effect of this excessive heat that we see. This is the hottest year we've ever had. Everybody knows that. Look, some people are even joking as if the last person who went to hell forgot to close the gate. Now, there is no doubt about it that it is being felt everywhere. The flood of 2012 and what is happening this very present here now is for everybody to see. The coastal areas are there, that the sea level is rising, and our critical infrastructures are in the coastal area. What we depend on for our light and for energy right now are in the coastal area for those infrastructure that are very, very critical to our economic security. And biodiversity, you find that presently, right now, when sometime I was in Katsina for a program there, the deputy governor approached me and said, Dr. Fodake, the problem we have now is what we are seeing that has unfolded. The herdsmen don't have their stick, but they have another neighbor, more than their neighbor, past them with their fumes and their noise and what is happening with their fossil fuel generators. That is necessary to bring home to the fact, because even right now, as I'm speaking to you, the area that is most, investment friendly today is in the area of renewable energy. Over 23 trillion is up for take before 2030. And most investment, most establishment in the private sector and the finance and the financial sectors are moving towards this area. We are partnering with Sterling Bank right now in our effort to do this. We've also partnering with an institution, Covenant University, in the technical area to bring the benefits of opportunities in climate change, because climate change is like a coin. The one side is the negotiation that has made Nigeria proud in the leadership of President Muhammad Buhari and the ministry. And the other side are these opportunities of moving the economy and getting out of recession using renewable energy. And I think that is the message that Nigerians should be very proud of, that we have a functional, purposeful, a leadership that we should be very proud of, we should support at all levels of the economy, not only in the states, not in local government, the private sector. There are opportunities for them to actually get Nigeria out of recession, because the productive aspect of the economy are the micro SMEs. Germany today is over 92% of that economy depends on the micro SMEs, and over 70 million SMEs in Nigeria are not documented. And when these ones are powered using clean energy, we can see the effect of job creation, no more migration things, and people will be coming to this country because they tell us that they see what we don't see. That's why the foreigners come here, whatever happens to them. I think we have a cause to be very proud of the leadership right now. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Fodake, for some of the issues that you have raised. But then let's get the views of Dr. Marwan Haruna. He's just spoke to the issues of strategic implementation. That is, yes, we've submitted our instruments of ratification, but then it's not just enough. We're looking at going further to implement, getting state governors, to be a part of this campaign. Is that enough, or there are other issues we should also be looking at?
Well, it's actually good that the Honourable Minister and the colleagues here have actually explained about the COP22, 21, that was the one for last year, and then the COP22, the one in Morocco. It's actually about, number one, bridging the gap between negotiation and then action. And the key challenge that we do have is that of action. Actually, the Federal Ministry of Environment has a very good template that they have brought, even about included in issues of climate change. But that actually didn't come into being, but hopefully by the one in next year, I remain hopeful that something will come in the offing. Putting in actually agriculture in the issue of climate change, climate financing, will do a lot to actually help in the insecurity as well as the economy. And then, if I may add as well, what the Federal Minister of Environment should also do, not only to the states, but they should create a kind of synergy. Because sincerely speaking, what we have today as the Federal Minister of Environment, the team, I will say that I am proud of them. I am personally proud of what is happening in the Federal Minister of Environment. The template is there, but the key challenge that they will have and they are having now is actually the action. Now, when they synergize, when they create that synergy between certain ministries, you talk about Ministry of Agri, Ministry of Water Resources, that will do a lot in actually making things work. It is actually about making things work and not just the template. Now that we have the template and we have the able team, there is need to bring in the issue of action, that is making things work.
All right, Dr. Marwan Abdulkarim, thank you very much there for your perspective. Let's return to the Minister of State for Environment, Alhaji Ibrahim Usman Jibril. I posed this question earlier, but I want you to take the question. From a policy perspective, after Nigeria's ratification of the Paris Agreement, what next? And a corollary question to that would be, what do you expect, or what does the federal government expect as a responsibility of the states and local governments in seeking to have a common national purpose and template for action in dealing with matters arising from the environment?
Thank you. Environmental issues all over the world are cross-cutting issues. And that is why in going to Morocco this year, the president had a team that covers the Minister of Agriculture, Water Resources, Power, and Works and Housing to go and look at issues that has something to do with their own very ministries. Now, recall that COP21, before the COP21 took place, Nigeria submitted its INDC, intended national determined contribution. These contributions are to tell the world what we intend to do to reduce emission that will contribute to climate change. After Paris, COP22 now is to actualize the INDC. In other words, we are moving from the INDC to NDC, our national determined contribution. Our national determined contribution is an ambitious one. We aim at reducing emission by 20%. That is unconditional. But we are determined to go to 45% reduction if we have assistance from developed nations that contribute to climate action. So our takeaway is we are moving now from talking into action. Our national determined contribution to reduction of emission is to be translated now into real actionable plan. And part of this is the issue of the green bond, which the Federal Ministry of Environment is floating in the first quarter of 2017. We're discussing with the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and about a month ago, the Minister of Environment, Amina, was in London Stock Exchange to discuss this issue. And from all indication, there are many people that are interested in this, because what the green bond will do is to release funds channeled towards climate-related action, smart agriculture, renewable energy, and during the COP22, I know the Minister of Power visited Mersin, which is a very big project in Morocco that is onto solar energy, and they are getting a lot of power from the solar energy. We have abundance of solar in this country, and we intend to leverage on this We intend to partner with the Ministry of Power so that solar energy will be part of the energy mix of this country. The hydro is not left behind. The Water Resources Ministry is also involved in this respect. So in a nutshell, we are moving our NDC, our National Determined Contribution, into actionable plans that will lead to creating job opportunities, taking climate action, and reducing poverty in this country.
How do the states and local governments fit into the actionable plans?
The state and local governments, a lot of the states have ministries of environment. Unfortunately, there are some that do not have Ministry of Environment. Instead, they have a unit within the Ministry of Agriculture. The last National Council on Environment we held in Nasarawa State, this issue was brought to bear, and it was brought to the fore. We launched what we call Eco Hub, which is a website that is interactive to get all the ministries of environment or any department that has to do with environment in any state to key into what we're doing, to disseminate information to them, and to assist them in tackling environmental issues. So we will continue with that project and program to ensure that everything we do at the federal level is passed down to the state government. We do not believe that the Federal Ministry of Environment has all the resources and all the expertise to handle issues in the whole country. The state governments and even the local government are closer to the people, and they know what the people are suffering in terms of flooding, in terms of desertification, in terms of whatever environmental issues. So partnering with them, getting them to key into our program is a significant step in the right direction. And we believe with the present commitment that we have from most of the commissioners of environment across the country, I think the sky will be the limit.
Well, Honourable Minister, why is the focus just on those 5 sectors you mentioned: water resources, energy, agric, and industrialization and transport?
They are important in the sense that the country is diversifying. The fact that I've not mentioned other key sectors does not mean that they are abandoned. We are also discussing with the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, because they are formulating a policy that will reduce the gas flaring that is going on for years now. And we know gas flaring is a major emitter of greenhouse gases. So the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources is in our plan. We are discussing with them. We are taking issues, and we are supporting his initiative in reducing the gas flaring. Why there is gas flaring persistently in this country, and why we keep shifting the goalposts of stopping the gas flaring, because the policy framework as it is today does not compel, so to say, the oil majors from flaring. It is easier for them to pay the token fine than to actually channel this gas flaring into a more productive use. And if you don't do that, if you don't strengthen the policy framework, there is no way you can stop them from flaring. Apart from that, Ministry of Industries is also a key partner, and we are discussing with them because we believe, just like the doctor has mentioned a short while ago, if you want to industrialize and you want to diversify the economy, you have to get renewable energy that will assist them to produce clean environment. So we are partnering with trade and industry, we are partnering with petroleum resources, in addition to the first 4 I mentioned.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. To return to our Lagos Network Studios, Ambassador Ayo Lokone, I'm sure you must have heard a story about what the President-elect of the United States has in terms of his disposition to the Paris Agreement. Should the rest of the world be concerned about what a Trump presidency might do with regard to climate change?
I'll address that quickly. You know, it was the late Mario Cuomo who said that you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. You campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. The president-elect of the United States has campaigned in poetry, but will have to govern in prose. The reality is that he has to deal with the whole question. He has to come on board, one way or the other. I'm sure that's what's going to happen, because I cannot envisage a situation in which the president-elect, coming in from, will rape the agreement, either the Paris Agreement or whatever else. I mean, I haven't said that. I'm very happy the minister had made mention of a few issues. And I come from the perspective of a foreign service officer, a ministry that has also worked closely with the Federal Ministry of Environment in terms of the question of implementation. Some of us has been involved way back from the Rio Earth Summit, when the UNFCCC and the 3 Rio Convention came, been involved in a lot of the negotiations. The key issue is always the question of the implementation. And I think that's why I'm happy that the minister had mentioned the question of the National Council of Environment. And I presume that the next meeting of the National Council of Environment will put smack on the table what we came back from Marrakesh. The question and issue of capacity building at the state level is very important. Let me give you an example. While serving in Nairobi in Kenya, we had an MOU between Nigeria and Jeff of UNEP in terms of how can we build the capacity of our state to tap into Jeff. The Jeff is the Global Environment Facilities. We brought in a workshop to Nigeria. We worked closely with the Ministry of Environment, and we invited the respective states. Very few of those states attended. But I think, fast forward, I think a lot of the states must now be on board. So in terms of what we are going to do after COP22, I think we need to bring in the states and also help to build the capacity. The minister mentioned the fact that maybe some states, many of these states don't have the Ministry of Environment. If it's not possible in terms of the arrangement, maybe they could have very, very important environmental units. The crisis of the municipal solid waste is a very good example of the problem, the crisis of the environment. Pure water sachet all over the place. But I think it's possible to use the National Council of Environment to also help the respective states and the possibility of the states themselves also having maybe an annual climate summit meeting. Lagos used to have it. They had 7 in terms of a climate summit meeting in Lagos State. Other states can bring in the respective stakeholders. But let me also mention this. You know, we've succeeded before. And I'm making reference in this context to the Vienna Convention on the Ozone Layer and then the Montreal Protocol. It means that the international community came together, and it's one of the most successful of the MEAs, Multilateral Environmental Agreement. I think it was former Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, who made reference to that while the discussion was going on as far as the climate. So we have a lot of lessons to learn in terms of how did we heal the ozone layer in terms of that. So we have a lot of lessons, and Nigeria keyed and benefited from that. The minister mentioned UNIDO, and I think UNIDO was one of the agencies that worked closely with us, and a lot of our factories, the foam factories, the refrigeration and others, benefited from the Montreal the funding under the ozone layer. So this is a good example as far as we are concerned. And I also want to also say that the issue of implementation, while we were working in Nairobi, there was the strategic approach to international chemicals management. Under that, there is the QSP, which is a quick support program fund. And Nigeria made contribution to that particular fund. If I can remember, maybe about $50,000. From that, we were able to tap into other funding, and we got a project, I think a program which is about $230,000 in terms of what exactly we can benefit from. So in this context, we should look at that. And that's where I want to mention the question of the ecological fund itself. As part of preparation, I went to the website of the ecological fund because, like they said, climate financing is the heart of the matter, and it should be a matter of the heart for us. Mrs. Mary Robinson, who is the special envoy of the Secretary General on El Nino and climate, drew our attention in Marrakesh to the fact that only 8% of the funds committed had been disbursed. This is a very, very important aspect of it. That is it possible for us in Nigeria to come home, discuss the possibility of the use of the ecological fund? It's about 3% of our national budget. How can we use that to support climate financing at this particular level? Because a lot of the states that will be involved when programs on adaptation and mitigation comes about, people will say, look, listen, we can't even pay teachers yet. We're talking about looking for funds to be able to, do climate change. So I think this is an area which I think government can. And we have a very proactive leadership at the Federal Ministry of Environment. I was lucky to be with the Minister of Environment during the UNIA 2 in Nairobi. We had the climate change, and she did a very good job. So these are the practical issues and practical areas. But like I said, we've succeeded somewhere before in terms of the Vienna Convention on ozone layer and the Montreal Protocol, and I think we can learn lessons from them. And can we also look at the ecological fund to see the possibility of our, because like we said, they say money is the bicycle for spreading the good news of God. It will be a very important aspect of it.
All right. Ambassador Ayo Olukoni, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. I hope you have a bicycle to where you're living at our Lagos studios, to wrap up, because there's traffic jam in Lagos, we understand. So, Ambassador Olukoni, we'll come back to you. But Nimo Bassey, it's on the other window. Nimo Bassey is still with us via Skype from Norway. Nimo Bassey, there's some aspects I would like you to address, now to cascade the matter down to the level that people can actually touch and feel. Now, before COP21, before COP22, we had a number of urgent environmental issues, which were, according to some persons, being tackled, by way of tokenist measures. Now, Nigeria has the Great Green Wall project to contend with. Nigeria has Lake Chad to recharge. You have erosion. In the southeast, a huge menace. You have erosion, coastal erosion, of course, in the coastal states of the Federation. And as Ambassador Olukoni mentioned earlier, we also have to contend with solid waste management in urban Nigeria. How does COP22, or how does all of it, the Paris Agreement, lead to, the effectuation of solutions through these various mechanisms that we've been handling?
Thank you for that battery of a question. You really captured the enormity of the challenges confronting us as a nation, and these are things that we cannot wish away on. They are not things that we can delay handling. Lake Chad, as we've heard over and over again, is almost disappearing, and it's contributing to a lot of conflicts that we are seeing. But the good thing about the Great Green Wall proposal is that it's not just about a ritual of planting trees, but it would provide a kind of economic corridor where you have integrated systems of businesses, of agriculture, of people actually seeing value in the trees that are planted and who would be active in ensuring that the trees survive. So if we have that kind of business corridor running beneath the Sahara across Africa, then that would be a very good way to integrate nations and also to help local economies. But let me quickly say this, because I have to run off in a few minutes, that all these challenges we're facing require finance. And as the minister said, Nigeria's nationally determined contributions as recorded for the purpose of the Paris Agreement, part of it is conditional on funding being available. And part is not conditional, which means no matter what, whether there's money or technology, Nigeria would handle those issues. There are those things that we have to handle unconditionally, we should do so immediately. And this should include stopping gas flaring. There was a feeble effort towards that in the PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill, that never saw the light of day. We can revisit that and make it work. There was a gas flare bill in the last Senate that was proposed by the present Senate President. If we can't wait for the PIB, we can pick up a bill like that and make it happen. But going back to climate finance and also the Paris Agreement. First of all, the Paris Agreement, the contributions suggested by countries about what they're going to do is already how much emission they're going to reduce. It's been seen already that the target of hoping to keep temperature from increasing more than 1.5 or below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels is just a mere target on paper, not based on, how to meet that target is not being pursued scientifically by the Conference of Parties, by nations. In fact, the current contributions that countries have submitted, including what Nigeria submitted, would put the planet towards having a temperature increase of 3 degrees or more by the end of the century, which means that no matter what we do at the moment, if countries don't go back to using science to determine what each nation would do as a fair share of their contribution to solving the problems, then we can do all we like nationally. We were headed for, unfortunately, we'll be headed for catastrophic or dangerous global warming, which would nullify all the efforts. If we have 3 degrees average temperature increase in the world, Africa will experience at least 4.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase. When we experience 1 degree temperature increase in our body, I mean, we will be terribly sick. So the world is already experiencing a kind of fever. And I'd go back to what I said earlier. There's a great need to put pressure on the negotiations to go back to having countries allocated their fair share of what must be done to stop global warming. Right now, poor, vulnerable countries are proposing to do far more than what they ought to propose to do. And this is unjust and unfair. Now, we're talking about, we're facing crisis in Africa. We're facing crisis in Nigeria. The Sahara is expanding. We're having coastal erosion. Our communities are being washed away. And we're having so many deforestation issues, of course, that some of our people are inflicting by policy and by action. These are the things that we can only avoid if the global picture is properly put in perspective. Those who contributed most to the crisis have to provide the finance, the technology, as well as cut emissions at home, not by polluting in Europe and telling me that my forest in Africa or in Asia or in Latin America is absorbing the carbon that they are releasing over here in Europe or in North America. These are the basic issues. And I think we have to always look at the global picture as we speak about the local situation.
All right, Mr. Nimo Bassey, thank you very much. But I just wanted you to explain further what we need to do in terms of proceeding with some of the measures that we had taken before. The Great Green Wall Project. How does this, fall under the climate change financing that you talked about? Solid waste management, soil erosion control in the coastal areas, and so on and so forth. You've already touched on pollution in the Niger Delta, stop gas flaring almost immediately. But in terms of the others, how do we make progress? How do we, as it were, hook this on to the new Paris Agreement and whatever benefits or opportunities there are?
I like the way you ended that phrase, whatever benefits, because the 100 billion that is being proposed will be from 2020. That is far down the road. And 100 billion cannot effectively tackle the climate crisis that is confronting very poor, vulnerable nations, including small islands that are almost disappearing under the waves. Now, but with regard to the specific questions that you asked, for instance, the Green Wall, I believe that wall, the way it's proposed, can easily fit into the mechanism that can attract finance, because it's not just about one country. It's a continental effort, just like the African Clean Energy, Renewable Energy Initiative. So if nations come together and really package it, can propose that holistically, and the activities would not only check the certification in Nigeria, across the Sahel in Africa, it would also regenerate agriculture. And we can even do some of this without finance. For example, there are some practices in countries like Burkina Faso, like Mali, like Niger, where local farmers have developed local technologies for regenerating the Sahel, for planting trees in places where there was serious degradation. We can have Nigerian farmers go to Burkina Faso, go to Mali, go to Niger, and learn how they are reviving their Sahel region. And of course, we need also local policy. It's not everything about money. It's about change of attitude, the way we relate to the environment. So we can have local actions based on what we have in the region, local technology, based on what that we already have developed over the centuries. We don't need to wait for high tech. We don't need to go the direction of industrial agriculture or genetically modified trees. This would only add to the problems that we're having. Then, in the case of the rising sea level and coastal erosion, Well, is mostly what we can do is mitigation, the defense. We have to build seawalls, reinforce our coastline in some areas, and get also our people to work to restore the mangrove forest. Mangroves provide very great sea defenses, seashore defenses, but many of our mangroves have been cut either by oil extraction activities or by local communities who are looking for firewood. And this is destroying not just the coastline, but also our capacity to maintain our aquatic resources. So there are things that can be done locally without necessarily having to wait for climate finance. There are things that require climate finance, and there are things that we can do by policy and by direct action.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Nimo Bassi. It's indeed been our pleasure talking with you this morning. You've joined us live via Skype from Bergen, Norway. And Mr. Nimo Bassi is an environmentalist and a human rights activist. We thank you so much for your thoughts and your time.
Thank you for letting me drop off. Thank you.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break now, and when we return, of course, all of our guests and honorable ministers of state environment is still seated here with us in the studio, and we'll come back. We'll begin with some of the messages we're getting from those of you tweeting at home, at our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. We'll be back in just a moment.
What's your name, my dear?
Her name is Jabel.
Chantel. I love taking my selfies.
I have 2 selfies too. I'll give you one and I'll make use of one.
Are you serious?
So why don't you hop into my car and go to my hotel room and
I wasn't thinking straight.
I was thinking 6 years.
Selfie Stick. This week's episode of Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, and special guest appearance by Yvonne Nelson.
If you say me na bushman, you na forest man.
Me?
Yaka, you na desert man.
Don't know anything. You are a jungle man. Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
I don't think I'm looking fine here.
No, you're fine. Don't worry.
No, see my eyes here. No,
but you're not that fine.
No, eh?
Over and out. Welcome to the new speed of life.
Germs, oil and dirt cause blemishes and uneven skin tone. You need Dettol Even Tone. It removes 99.9% of germs and is formulated to remove excess oil and dirt, helping to reduce blemishes.
Dettol Mom. She only trusts Dettol antiseptic liquid to kill 100 illness-causing germs, and it's recommended for cuts and scrapes. Worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom. Dettol, be 100% sure.
In the heart of Abuja is Barcelona Hotels, a hotel that satisfies your every need. Our rooms are exquisitely furnished with state-of-the-art deco, top-notch room service, and our restaurant and bar. Ooh la la.
Sounds good to me.
Our halls are spacious and affordable for your meetings and special occasions. A fully equipped gym and laundry services are at your disposal.
I'm very happy about that.
Feel the thrill at the Barcelona rooftop restaurant and garden with an amazing 360 degrees view of Abuja and an attractive lighting display at night for your relaxation and pleasure while enjoying sounds from our live band.
Yay!
Totally awesome. Treat yourself to these and much more at Barcelona Hotel, located at number 23, Blantyre Street, off Ademola Adetokunbo Crescent, Wuse 2, Abuja. Dial 0814-137-5819
or 0700 Barcelona.
For more info and bookings,
email info@barcelonahotelsnigeria.com.
Barcelona Hotels, serving our guests the best way.
To get Jobberman, Airtel One Touch, and many more without data charges. Only on Airtel.
All right, you're welcome back. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're still discussing, of course, the matters arising from COP22, which ended in Marrakesh, Morocco. We still have Ambassador Ayo Olukoni at our Lagos Network studios, have the Minister also for Environment here with us, and the former head of the Climate Change Special Unit, Minister of Environment, as well as an environmentalist, Dr. Abdul Karim. But in the meantime, there are reactions already from viewers who have taken advantage of our Twitter handle at NTAGMA. We take some of those tweets now.
All right, so the very first one is from Sir Joe Udi. He says Onitsha and Umuahia were recently ranked amongst the most polluted cities in the world. Other cities are no better. Actions, please. And he also tweets again, it's a shame that stopping gas flaring and other restoration programs in the Niger Delta have been on the cards for decades.
And we have this tweet from Emmanuel Marcel. It says about 110 countries came to an agreement for what was triggered in COP21. Now COP22 has proved beyond reasonable doubt that there is global warming.
And Sani Michael Omokaji tweets, with globalization, the world should prove to the U.S. that they can survive without them, should they crash COP agreements.
And this one is from Ortega. It says, I still believe, this is Ortega tweeting, I still believe that climate change is a hoax and nothing more. He continues, the so-called climate change is a process to defraud developing nations. Africa should be more careful about this whole thing. There's one skeptic still out there about climate change and so on and so forth. But let's return to our studios and I guess Dr. Victor Fodeke. Dr. Victor Fodeke, you touched on what you described as climate change opportunities, and the other guests have also talked about climate change financing or climate financing and the whole basket of matters that pertain to what to do with climate change. And all of this, of course, will now be fast-tracked by the Paris Agreement and COP22 going forward. What, in your opinion, should be the appropriate response to persons who have also raised some issues? Ambassador Olukone talked about the ecological fund. We have an ecological fund that is charged regularly, but we still have the environmental challenges that we face. That's one. And secondly, assuming, and everybody wishes for that, Nigeria is able to access the funding that we're talking about, climate funding or climate financing, what guarantees need to be put in place so that these funds are not spent legitimately but unwisely on travels and project vehicles rather than the real purpose for which it was intended?
My first reaction is taken from what the president has already put in place. There's transparency arrangement right now in fighting corruption. That should be extended to the comprehensive program by the Ministry of Environment right now. The strategic action plan will lead to having a compendium of projects, and the policy put in place that is bottom up, not from top to bottom. If that policy is owned by all Nigerians, then we move towards the area of particular programs that are action enforcing programs. That is, they are directed that we produce measurable, reportable, and verifiable results that is for everybody to see. Whatever fund, as former civil servant, I'm told that subvention minus accountability is scandal. To be able to avoid such scandalous situation, there must be measurable, reportable, verifiable, that is justification of funding that has gone into any specific project, and make the public, that is the civil society organization, as watchdog. I'm not saying they are dogs, but they say they make them as watchdogs so that they can actually serve as a means of verifying. And whatever funding that goes into any project is made for everybody to see on the social media and the internet. When people see this, it will be very difficult to be able to wriggle around that. The ecological fund is one solution. The other solution is creating a climate smart investment environment for the private sector. Whatever we want to do in climate change right now in terms of technology is very critical. And to be able to bring that for the populace is the private sector that sits in that particular area. We would want to deploy clean energy in terms of solar. Solar is the highest area for investment. And I think that this is a wake-up call for our private sector and our financial institutions to open up for what Sterling Bank has done with us. Because they need to...
Sorry, Doctor,
yes.
You keep talking about Sterling Bank. I'm sure that our marketing department is going to send you a bill for this free advert.
You can edit that you didn't hear it. Okay, well, maybe if there are some restrictions in that, I'm only just explaining. So I'm not advertising for them, please. I'm only reporting what is a success story, yes. It's a success story that is happening now. Because when you create a climate-smart investment environment for the private sector will fill in the gap, and Nigeria will get out of recession very fast.
I'm sorry, what exactly are you talking about? I mean, still the manufacturing sector talks about sub 40% capacity, installed capacity utilization. Are they going to have to retool their equipment? Are they, what is it they're saying, climate smart investment? Sorry, but I don't know how you couch it. Climate smart investment environment. A new investment, to be superimposed on what is already existing, or efficiently managing what you have and then be in a position to produce, earn money, and therefore be able to draw on new investments going forward.
Climate change has opened another regime for investment. You are the technology for provision of solar, like the case of what we have, 1,000 watt, 1 kilowatt of solar power system for the Babas. They have about 10 million patronage. To do that one requires a funding scenario, and it's a sort of a pocket-friendly arrangement that makes them to buy into it. You look into the area of climate smart agri too. You need to provide funding to get that happening. The policy arrangement must be that it is friendly to the private sector, that they are guaranteed, that your investment is guaranteed and secured, that nothing tampers with it. When you are short of your investment that is guaranteed there, then you invest into that area. That's what about climate smart investment environment. Those policies must be put in place, and with those policies that are, it's like everybody takes part into it, they have input into it, and government announces it, and this is what we have in place for you. The private sector will move into these emerging opportunities. You cannot do the same thing in the same way and expect a different result. There are emerging opportunities in every area. In the area of environment, area of waste, we talk about right now in the US and in Canada, recycling is a cash cow. And a lot of money, apart from, it is not the Ebola type. The reduction from the house, from sorting from the house, and the various components there, the U.S. Embassy gave some money to some green champions that they are developing techniques to recycle this aluminum waste. They melt it and they make jewelries from it, and they return the molten one. They will get it to the companies like Coca-Cola and that we use it to make more cans. Paper is another very clean one, but plastic is a very dangerous one because microplastic is coming up right now. You can recycle these things, and they create jobs and they create wealth. And I can assure you that it's a cash cow from trash. These are emerging opportunities that has been there before. And look at the area of food production too. The same thing happens to the private sector too. When this environment is created for them, the private sector will fill this gap. And that's what I believe the Ministry of Environment has identified critical sectors. That's what made them to choose the various ministries that they have taken along because of their contribution to the emission that is being generated. That made them to be very proactive in doing that. But I can also look very quickly in the area of the gas flaring. The gas that is being flared can power the whole of West Africa. I was told by one of the staff there. When you talk about stopping gas flaring, the same gas that is flared is used to power the flow stations. And I asked one of the managers, what does it cost you to increase your gas turbine so that you can have industrial park around each of the flow stations and create an industrial area for small and medium-scale enterprises? He said it doesn't cost anything. And instead of flaring the gas and wasting it, you create small industries, cottage industries. And when those industries are set up, the community will protect the facility. They would not need to hire soldiers and police to be able to secure such places there. These are emerging opportunities.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor, for that care. But very quickly, I would like Dr. Haruna to also speak to the issue of the role of the private sector. Let's take it from where he stopped now. Well, let's look at the role of the private sector. Does the private sector have a very big role to play, especially in this?
Well, the private sector actually has a great role to play. Number one, in respect of depending on the sector, they should try as much as possible to see how they imbibe the culture of using clean energy. For example, going into solar and the related. More so also the private sector, what they can do is to see how they can tap into the financing that is being given in the country. For example, when we are talking about the Bank of Industry, and I think that is where I will personally make mention of the fact that the Bank of Industry, for example, where it is given financing, it should be able to partner with the Federal Ministry of Environment to see who and how they can give financing. If, for example, the private sector is somebody is establishing an industry, the industry should be able to link up with the clean development, clean energy mechanism. I will also want to chip into the issue of the financing that has been raised in respect of the ecological funds. Actually, while I absolutely agree that we should always look at the climate issue as a global issue, but there is also the need for us to come back home to see what we have, to work with what we have. And I think what the Federal Ministry of Environment should do, not just allowing the use of ecological funds, but also partnering with states in such a way that there will be capacity building. More so also there should be a publicity on what the states are partnering and how far they have fared in respect of climate issues with Federal Ministry of Environment.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Haruna. But let's finally get the closing thoughts of Ambassador Ayo Olukani. I'd like you to very, very, very quickly speak to the issue of financing and, of course, the opportunities that are inherent in all of this.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, come back to the question of the Ecological Fund. Because if you go to the website of the Ecological Fund, maybe they are operating against the background of the act that set it up. You don't find anything directly on climate change. Maybe perhaps the National Council of Environment should look at the possibility of that in terms of, can we create a line within the framework of the Ecological Fund to do this? I also want to raise the fact that there are a lot of funding opportunity out there. There needs to be an awareness as far as that is concerned. We have to, the Federal Ministry of Environment can help to lead. I come from a civil society background currently now. Faith, Dr. Newton Jibunel, who is the chair, is well known, has traveled to Dara 3 times, and I serve on the board of. We also have practical programs on ground in Makoda in Kano State, where we have a village in which economic trees are planted in those places, and from there a small little agro industry is growing, and in which people in the villages themselves are helping themselves to, in a way, do their part as far as climate change itself is concerned. Because like they say, it is the heart of the matter, and definitely it has to be a matter of heart. I sincerely hope that Kingsley will not say they should send a bill to Faith in terms of the work we're doing, but the civil society also has it. Let me on this closing, let me just say this briefly. COP12, we were in Nairobi in Kenya, where we have Niger on our left, we have Norway on our right. Suddenly we found Niue. Niue is a small little country in the Pacific. I eventually got to know the place when I served as ambassador in Australia. And I was asking, what are you people doing here? And she said, we are here in case if our island disappears, then we can, of course, find a country to go to. I said, whole country? She said, how many of you? She said, 1,500. You mean 1.5 million? She said, no, 1,500 people. I said, by the time you have the election, the president and the minister, who is left to run? And you have an armed forces, she said, they have 20 policemen and 5 prisoners who can go home for a weekend and come back to continue their jail term. She now said, Nigeria, remember, if we are discussing on that, particular voting on that, we also have 1 vote. But I think that is, I mean, it may be on the sideline, but that is a reality as far as the climate change is concerned. how do we devolve down to the respective state? And also ask the respective state themselves to also see how they can mobilize, use their the partners. We have people in the private sector, we have people in the civil society. I think that is the way to go as far as this is concerned. Of course, the private sector areas, of course, also been said. There is no question of carbon trading. I think that is a little bit too much complicated, but that's also an opportunity in terms of the possibility of the question of financing. How do we trade in carbon credits and other things like that? I sincerely hope we have an opportunity to be able to discuss all this issue. Once again, I want to say thank you for bringing me in, and I want to say big congratulations to the ministry, to the minister, and his entire team. And finally, we need to raise new generations of environmentalists, new generation, the schools, the education, so that people can come and of course be on board. And what about our respective institutions? A lot of researches is going on in respective institutions, the universities. Let us also bridge the gap between town and gown as far as the question of climate change itself is concerned. Thank you.
All right, Ambassador Ayo, look, always a delight having you join our conversations. Of course, today you spoke to us from our Lagos Network Center. Thank you for your thoughts, and I'm sure that before you get from our studios there to some other location on VIA, you probably will come across some 200 policemen rather than 20 you saw in Nira. Once again, thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Let's return to Abuja studios and get the closing thoughts of the Honorable Minister of State for Environment. Some of the issues that have been raised from COP21, much more closely in COP22, and from what we have also discussed here, would tend to suggest that there's a lot of policy streamlining that is required amongst shall we say, the collaborating ministries that are leading all of this. What expectation is there that this streamlining will work and work well? I mean, we take energy, for instance. We're promoting smart energy. You already have investments ongoing in coal to power. You already have all kinds of things going on in agri and so on. Yes.
Well, we have already an interministerial group in place which covers this mines ministry, power, agri, and water resources, just like I mentioned. And I said the last COP22, 3 of these ministers were there. They visited a power plant which was solely by solar. So it's something already which we've started for the past 6 months, and we've been talking together, trying to bring the policy framework in one place. Anything that has to do environment and is in power, we make sure that the Minister of Power involves us and we give him our output. We don't have to have the funding. If he has the funding and he can do it for us, we'll come out and claim the credit because it affects the environment and it's for good of the environment. This is the framework under which we are working right now. I want to clarify one issue. The ambassador has been talking about ecological fund. Let it be known to those who don't know that the ecological fund is not under the Ministry of Environment. Therefore, we are not in a position to direct the use of the ecological fund. There is a permanent secretary in charge of ecological fund and is not under the Ministry of Environment. But it does not stop us from giving advice if and when it is required. So it is another issue altogether that should be channeled toward the right direction. But the state government apply for this and they know where to channel their request to get ecological fund. The ecological fund as it is structured now is geared towards emergencies where there will be quick intervention and people will apply for it and then the necessary thing is done and the funds are released. But like I said, it's not under the purview of the Ministry of Environment. Therefore, we are not in a good position to talk about how it is managed or how it is channeled and what is being done. I can only talk about issues regarding the Ministry of Environment.
All right, Honorable Minister of State, just to clarify what you just said, the ecological fund is domiciled actually in the office of the Secretary of Government of Federation. Now, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of State for Environment, Alhaji Ibrahim Usman Jibril. Thank you for your participation in our discussion this morning. And then we also would like to thank Dr. Victor Fodeke. It was head Special Climate Change Unit, Federal Ministry of Environment. Thanks for your contributions. And then we also would like to thank Dr. Marwan Abdul Karim, an environmentalist. Thank you for your insights.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, let's move on now to our companion segment. Let's begin with sports. Nigeria's Super Falcons begin their title defense in Cameroon on a good note with a win over Mali. Let's get more details of this and, of course, more on our sports update.
Nigeria began their title defense of the Africa Women Cup of Nations in solid fashion by smashing 6 goals past Mali at the Municipal de Limbe Stadium on Sunday. The 7-time champions opened a 2-goal lead with Francisco Dega in the 22nd minute and Aziza Rushola in the 48th before Uchechi Sunday scored from the penalty spot 2 minutes into the second half. Florence Omagwemi's Super Falcons continued to dominate in the second half with 3 more goals from the Arsenal ladies forward Aziza Rushola. With a victory, the Super Falcons top Group B and will face arch rivals Ghana in the next outing on Wednesday. In the meantime, the under-20 women national team, the Falconets, came from behind to see off hard-fighting Spanish side 2-1 in the final day group match on Sunday at the ongoing FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup in Papua New Guinea. The heroic performance at the PNG Football Stadium in Port Moresby continued for nothing as the 2014 finalists crashed out of the biennial football showpiece courtesy of the heavy 0-6 loss to Japan in the group's opening match day 1 clash. Japan finished as Group B winner with 6 points after dismissing Canada 5-0.
And the world number 1 from Great Britain, Andy Murray.
And straight to tennis, Britain's Andy Murray beat 5-time champion Novak Djokovic to win his first ATP World Tour Finals title and end the 2016 as the world number 1.
Andy Murray.
Speaking about the last few weeks, so it was weird. It felt more like I was playing for that rather than trying to win this event, but yeah, it's obviously amazing.
All right, thank you very much there for the sports package. Let's go over now to the weather center to check out the weather prospects for the rest of today.
Hello. Good to have you join us again on the weather segment. I am Susan Opara. In the past 2 days, we've observed a slight increase in maximum temperature values over the north, and it means that it will continue to be hot and uncomfortable. This could be as a result of clear skies that we are experiencing right now over the north. And so, with that, we expect the northern cities, especially the extreme north, to be in dust haze, though in slight condition. Moving down south, the central cities will be sunny and hazy. Now, due to the influence of moist southwesterly winds over the southern cities, we expect places around Obudu, Enugu, Akure, some parts of the inland cities of the south down to the coast will experience isolated thunderstorms and light showers in the evening hours. And that's where we conclude the weather forecast for Monday. Temperature details will be here in just a moment. Stay tuned.
And that's how it's been on Good Morning Nigeria today. Our focus has been on the just concluded COP22 in Marrakech, Morocco. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a very, very productive day. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., we'll be back.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Rhoda in thanking you for starting your day with us. See you tomorrow.